This is Moral Psychology, the Science of Good and Evil, ? It is a module about ethical abilities. So for example, when the fight started, most of the people around ran away. Quite rightly, because this is a very dangerous situation for them to be in. But not this lady here. She actually went straight up to the big guy, and she is at considerable risk to herself, attempting to prevent the fight from happening. She's paying a high cost here. This is an action which manifests an ethical ability she has, an ability to act in ways considered ethical or indeed unethical. Likewise, what you're about to see, the tough guy is about to refrain from attempting to hit the tramp further. And in so refraining from acting, the tough guy is manifesting an ethical ability. You looking on, when you saw earlier the tough guy pulling the tramp by the hair across the street and attempting to hit him, you are likely making some judgments there. You're likely judging that certain actions are entirely deserved or that certain actions are wrong. Those, of course, are ethical judgments, and in making those, you're once again manifesting another aspect of your ethical abilities, the ability to make judgments about right, wrong, and the rest. Importantly though, your ethical abilities are not limited to acting and making judgments. You are also open to moral suasion, like all the humans. And indeed that's a bit of what's happening here in the small scale. This lady here is attempting to exercise some moral suasion, to change the ethical views of the tramp. And that is important for us because our ethical abilities are part of our capacities for culture and cooperation. So it's important that through moral suasion and perhaps other mechanisms as well, we can to some degree align our ethical abilities and some of the principles that underpin those ethical abilities in order, of course, to live together. But that's still not the full story about your ethical abilities. Perhaps the most important aspect of your ethical abilities are abilities to have certain kinds of feelings or emotions. So earlier, I take it that when you see the tough guy pulling the tramp across the street and then attempting to hit him, at least if this was a real situation rather than a piece of slapstick, you would very likely be having some pretty strong feelings at this point, feelings of disgust, of anger, maybe you can feel some kind of injustice. All of that's a new question. But the important point here is that your emotional reaction, perhaps independently of any action or judgment that you have, your emotional reaction is in and of itself a manifestation of an ethical ability. Now, I don't want to tell you not at all that these are the only ethical abilities. Indeed, one big question for us on this course will be to try to characterize the ethical abilities of humans and perhaps of non-humans or human infants as well. So as I say, moral psychology is a course about ethical abilities. Our discipline, moral psychology, is the study of psychological aspects of ethical abilities. Now, sometimes when people first come across this idea, it seems like a very strange idea to them that there would even be such a thing. So it might be helpful to think by analogy with your linguistic abilities. So you and I enjoy these remarkable linguistic abilities, even that we're currently exercising. Psycholinguistics is the study of the psychological aspects of the linguistic abilities. So moral psychology stands to your ethical abilities, as psycholinguistics stands to your linguistic abilities. Or we could think about your mathematical abilities or your aesthetic abilities, your abilities to appreciate beauty and to feel various aesthetic emotions and the like. In each case, we can ask about the psychology of those abilities. We can do mathematical psychology or aesthetic psychology. And once again, what we're doing in those cases is analogous to what we're doing in the case of moral psychology. We are studying psychological aspects of some ability, in this case, the ethical abilities. Now, this course is organised in a very simple way. The topic is new, I hope, to many people here, if not to everybody. It's designed for people who've never come across this topic before. So it has a very simple overall structure, although of course we're going to get into lots of complicated and quite confusing debates. The first set of questions we're asking are, what ethical abilities do humans have, and what states and processes underpin those ethical abilities? So this is really the main descriptive component, where we're just trying to understand what has been discovered, what theories are well supported by the evidence, what theories are more speculative. Then the second analytic set of questions really has two parts. The first concerns what, if anything, discoveries about ethical abilities imply for political conflict. Are the things that you're going to learn about humans' ethical abilities that might change how you approach a political conflict, or might change your view about whether the political conflict can be resolved, how it can be resolved, if it can be resolved at all? The second question here is what those discoveries about ethical abilities might imply about ethics. Are there ethical views or ethical principles which should be changed or challenged or supported on the basis of discoveries about psychological aspects of humans' ethical abilities? So corresponding to these questions, these are the overarching questions for the course on moral psychology. Corresponding to those questions, we have a very simple course structure. The first part of the course is about the psychological underpinnings of ethical abilities. The second part concerns potential political consequences of these. And the third part concerns implications for ethics, if any. The only slight complication here is that part 1 doesn't really finish before parts 2 and 3 start. Indeed, in exploring the political consequences and implications for ethics, we will actually be furthering our understanding of the psychological underpinnings of ethical abilities as we go. This is Moral Psychology, the Science of Good and Evil ? You are most welcome.